Dear students, today we are going to learn a very important point from the chapter Atmospheric Pressure and Winds. So what we are going to learn? So here see today's topic of discussion, pressure belts and shifting of pressure belt. So here students, before going to start this pressure belt, that you should know the definition. In the last two videos I have explained about atmospheric pressure. So when this atmospheric pressure will be distributed across that latitudes on the earth, then it is known as horizontal distribution of pressure, atmospheric pressure. And the main feature of this horizontal distribution of this pressure is the pressure belt. So all over the world, even on this earth, we can see total 7 pressure belts present. So here I have written the name. You can see here equatorial low pressure belt. This is single, except this equatorial low pressure. All these 3 names are in pairs. It means for northern hemisphere and for southern hemisphere. So here equatorial low pressure belt, and then subtropical high pressure belts in northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Then subpolar low pressure belt here subtropical high pressure, this one it was. Then northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, subpolar low pressure belt in southern hemisphere and northern hemisphere, and then polar high pressure belt in northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Here already I have drawn this diagram, and you can see that some numbers I have written and HP, LP I have written. HP mean high pressure, LP mean low pressure. So these are the low pressure belts of the world. You can see here this equatorial low pressures, this also here, this is the one. Here 0 degree, this is equator, near to the equator the low pressure. I will also discuss later on. First see here, then the high pressure. You can see alternatively how the low pressure then high pressure is formed, then again the low pressure in that subpolar area, and then again high pressure formed at that polar area. Okay, so here these are the main, that 7 that pressure belts, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, now we will get to know that what are the importance of these pressure belts and how the movements of the air basically influenced by these pressure belts. We all know the winds always move from high pressure to low pressure area. We have read also. Now we have to understand. First I am going to tell about this equatorial low pressure. Equator, this is 0 degree equator. Beside this 0 degree equator, 5 degree northern hemisphere and 5 degree southern hemisphere. Within this 0 to 5 in southern hemisphere, we can see that whole year that maximum the direct rays of the sun received by this place. Even these also direct rays, it never extend outside of 30 degree north and 30 degree south. So this area receive maximum that sun radiation compared to the other areas. So this area, these areas also become hot or hotter than other areas. And when the areas will be hotter due to that convectional radiation that through this process, the wind or the surrounding areas wind, it will become warm and light weighted and it will rise up. Okay, and here one more thing, that within this 5 degree north and south, two type of wind in the northern hemisphere, that northeast trade wind and in this also southeast trade wind, they converge within 5 degree north and south. Due to that, we will not get to see any kind of horizontal movement of the wind. Horizontal movement of wind will not be there. That's why we can see a calm situation in this, that lower layer of the atmosphere. Even in the characteristic, we can say gloomy, then listless mood, we can see this kind of movement of the air is not there. And that's why this 5 degree north and south, it is known as doldrum. Okay, why it is doldrum? Because I already have said the wind, there is no horizontal movement. That's why wind is calm as well as gloomy, and we can say listless mood we can see here. Students, in this part I have explained that over equatorial low pressure belt we can't see any horizontal movement of the air. That's why it's known as doldrum. But where we are seeing due to the high temperature the air it's uprising and it's forming the turbulent situation which is causing heavy rainfall. As here northeast and southeast trade wind converging here, that's why it is known as ITCZ. ITCZ means Intertropical Convergence Zone. ITCZ means Intertropical Convergence Zone. Okay, so here you can see here in this area this trade wind converging, that's why the name given. So here in the exam it used to come what is doldrum. So you have to explain, as here the trade wind also converging, that's why we can't see any horizontal movement of the air. The characteristic of the air, it will be calm, gloomy, listless mood that we can see. That's why this is name given the name doldrum. And one more thing, that within this also as the convectional heating is there, that's why the wind is blowing towards upper side or rising up, and after that what is happening? Understand here, this low pressure due to heating it's forming. After that this low pressure wind it ascending and rising up, and this low pressure wind it is descending in that this area of 30 degree north and to 60 degree north and 30 degree south to 60 degree south. So when this ascending air of this equatorial low pressure zone, it descending in this area of 30 degree to 60 degree north and southern hemisphere, within that we can see that after releasing the temperature it gradually cool down and then it become heavy and dry, and that's why here in this 30 degree above this area we can see the high pressure zone. Okay, so again tell him, from these equatorial areas low pressure that zones, the wind which rising up means ascending, that it descending in this latitudinal extension, and when it is descending it is releasing the heat and becoming heavy, cooling down, and finally it's forming that high pressure zone. Okay, and in this that high pressure area, high pressure, that this is actually known as the subtropical high pressure zone in the northern hemisphere, in the southern hemisphere, subtropical high pressure. In this high pressure, as that wind, equatorial wind, it descend, here we can't see any horizontal movement of the air. That's why in ancient time when people used to that sail their ships, they used to follow the direction of the winds. But as these areas or the latitude not having any horizontal movement of the air, they used to that also unload their that cargoes or their horses to make the ships lighter weighted. Otherwise it can sink down in that water. Okay, so that's why that time they used to throw their horses into that sea, which actually known as the cargo. So that's why this area, this latitudinal extension 30 degree to 60 degree, within this also high pressure zone is known as the horse latitude. Is known as the horse latitude. Students, understand here in this exam, in the exam it used to ask what is horse latitude. So you have to explain, as the equatorial low pressure wind descend here, that's why we can't see any horizontal movement of the air in this high pressure zone. Okay, and then to make their ships, basically at that ancient time when people used to trade through that water bodies, they used to sail their ships, and to also make their ships lighter weighted, they used to throw the horses in the sea. That's why this name is given horse latitude. Okay, now here understand here, when this equatorial air it descend, after that it's become cool, and always we know high pressure winds it moves to that low pressure direction. So it divides into two that branch. One branch it's moving again towards equator, another branch is moving towards subpolar, that low pressure zone. So what I have said, which that wind it descend here, that again dividing into two branch. One is moving towards equator by the attraction of low pressure, as it is high pressure zone, so high pressure winds moving to low pressure. Another is moving towards that low pressure subpolar low pressure zone. Okay, same way in the southern hemisphere also happening, that two branch is dividing. Okay, so here this is also very important. This high pressure, we are getting to see that division of this air. Now the next belt is there, subpolar low pressure, within that 60 degree to 70 degree, that northern latitude, and 60 degree to 70 degree southern latitude. Within this, what's happening? When this air is descending here from this high pressure zone, when the winds is descending here, then after what's happening? Both the hemisphere, what's happening? Due to that rotation of the earth, the centrifugal force which is forming, due to that centrifugal force, the wind is trying to move outside, and by that the wind is blowing towards equator and outside. It's blowing towards equator and outside. And in this case, we can see the wind which is blowing towards that also southwest direction. By that influence of Coriolis force, it will move toward northeast direction. And even in this also cases, southern hemisphere, it will also blow towards equator. Okay, so here that's why the low pressure formed that within this also latitude or 60 degree north and south to that 70 degree north and south latitudinal extension, because here due to rotation centrifugal force forming, and this centrifugal force is helping to move outside this wind which is coming from these also that high pressure zone towards that low pressure, and one also branch it is coming from polar area, polar, that's high pressure to that low pressure area. Because polar high pressure, this is 90 degree frigid zone, ice covered area, whole year ice cap we can see here in this polar area, south pole and north pole. So from this side, the wind, the high pressure wind also blow towards this low pressure. So from this you are getting to understand, I think here, that I have also used that arrow to make you understand how the wind is blowing. First of all, from this high pressure, subtropical high pressure of north and south, it's moving towards the low pressure subpolar low pressure area, and another branch is coming from that polar, that high pressure towards this subpolar low pressure area, in both hemisphere. And then by that influence of centrifugal, it's moving out, that's why the low pressure zone formed there. Okay, and lastly, that is the near about that 70 degree to 90 degree, 70 degree to 90 degree north and south within this hemisphere, which is totally far from that we can say equator, and which receives slanting rays of the sun, very less amount of heat received. That's why whole year ice covered within that frigid zone we can see. That's why high pressure winds, it moves down. Okay, or the cold winds, it moves down, and then it forms the high pressure belts there. So students, here what I have explained in this part, that equatorial, that this is the doldrum part, or ICSE, where that's northeast and southeast trade wind converge. That's why the name ICSE given, intertropical convergence zones. And as we know horizontal movement of the air, it's calm, it's gloomy, that's why it's known as doldrum. Next I have explained about this high pressure subtropical, the ascending air from this equatorial, it descend in that high pressure zone subtropical area, and this subtropical air basically it again divide into two branch, one is going towards equator, another is going towards that subpolar low pressure, same in both hemisphere. Okay, and then another I have said that this area, this high pressure zone subtropical, is not having horizontal movement, that's why here people used to throw the horses in the sea. That's why the name given horse latitude. Okay, next is there that due to centrifugal force, the subpolar, that low pressure in the both the hemisphere it form, and finally that frigid zone area we can see the high pressure. Hope you have understood these pressure belts and the movements of the air.
Students, over these low pressure belts of the earth form cyclones, and over these high pressure belts form anticyclones. So low pressure winds form cyclone and high pressure winds form anticyclone on this earth.